What's going on, guys? Welcome back. My name's James the Con,
And I'm Bobby the Bot.
and we've got a very exciting review for you today. We've got MH01C, so that's the Hurricane / Shattered Glass Cyclonus, which is a KO of Fanstoys. It's my first, I guess you could say, dipping my toes into fans toys without really doing it because I don't have any of them. Bobby is an avid collector, so this should be a very interesting dual review from two very different perspectives.
Totally agree. We're going to go ahead and show off, basically James' first experience with a Fans Toys-ish type figure, but we'll also bring out the Quietus, Fans Toys 29, and Fans Toys 29T, which is the tuned version as well for comparisons.
In the cardboard shipping container, and I actually got inside. I was a little worried because it does come in a Cyclonus box, but once I got it opened and opened everything up, I was able to see that it was actually the Shattered Glass version, and I was very happy with that. So the only complaint I had was the face came off, but that was an easy fix just to slap it back on. What about you, Bobby?
So initially, I felt the same way. I didn't know how it was going to be packaged. So initially, I thought it was just going to be the cardboard that it was shipped in, and then maybe just the clamshell inside. So I was happy to see a box inside of a box, but then I didn't notice it was purple, and I was a little worried. And when I opened it up, my face and the eyes were actually on the side as well. So you're right, quick fix, but it was a little concerning that it comes off so easily.
All right, well, that was our first impressions, and why don't we just get right into the figure? All right, guys, why don't we get into the figure itself, and let's talk about the aesthetics first. So I think it's obviously clear that this is a G1 Shattered Glass Cyclonus. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You can change it into an IDW one, but when we get to accessories, we'll talk about that. So I think it's pretty clear. They did a really good job making it look like the original toy, except the color is more of an orangey red, if not just a straight up orange, than it is a red like the original figure that was I think it was a Transformers Collectors Club figure. So I'm kind of disappointed in that, but other than that, all the paint apps, everything is exactly like how I would want it to be. So is there anything you'd like to say about the aesthetics, Bobby?
So to me, I know when I sent a picture to you earlier today, we both got ours today. I got mine a few hours earlier, and when I sent it to you, it looked red. And I had to explain to you that it's actually like a candy corn, Halloween candy orange, and that's probably the best way to sum it up. I think the colors look really good together, though. I'm not sure what the original Shattered Glass version looked like, but I like these colors together.
Yes, so I have to agree that this actually looks more cohesive than the original one. The dark red with the orange looked like Rodimus, like it was trying to portray, but this seems to be more cohesive, like you said. So let's move on to the feel. Since you are the Fans Toys guy, why don't you take over with that?
So one of the things that I noticed immediately when I picked it up was the lack of die cast in the legs in particular. It felt.
So I think the feet right here are die cast, but I think maybe the knees, but that's about it.
And the chest doesn't feel as heavy as it does on the Fans Toys.
Mm-hmm. It is die cast though as well.
It is as well, but it just doesn't feel as sturdy. It doesn't feel as thick, which threw me off a little bit. I was expecting it, but I wish I had a scale to determine how much each one of them weighed. I do think, though, it captured pretty much the overall look of the figure. It's pretty spot on, with there was no pieces hanging off or anything like that, which typically you start to expect from a KO. Everything looked really well. The molding looked pretty spot on. So I was pretty happy with it.
Yes, I agree. As somebody who doesn't have any other Fans Toys, this is right on par with any other third-party figure that I'm used to. Sure, the face was off in the packaging, but once you actually get it in hand, it looks fine. It feels fine. The ratchets are good. There's only one thing that I don't like, and that is these legs come down when you pull them out to the side. But if you look, it's just on a screw. So I'm going to get in there with a screwdriver and just tighten that up, and we should have no issues. But other than that, I quite enjoy this figure so far. And why don't we talk about articulation? So articulation is exactly what you'd expect. The head can swivel, look up and down, which is always appreciated. The arms can go 90 out to the side, which again, you're not going to need much more than that. They go a full 360 all the way around, and I still got some styrofoam from the packaging coming off of them. The bicep swivel goes about that far and about 90 degrees. It does bump into all of this wing kibble on the back, which is unfortunate, but it's not the end of the world. As far as the elbow, it's double jointed. Again, you can't get much more than that with this design. I'm sure somebody could correct me, but you can move the hands up and down, which is a bit of a shame. I wish he had the other the wrist joint where they go like this instead of like this, because that is just better for guns and swords and stuff like that. So that is a little bit of a negative mark. But as far as the hands, if you look right here, each of the fingers has a joint at the base, at the knuckle, and then every joint you can need. They are just swivels, so they don't have the dexterity to go in and out like some of the third parties do, but that's okay. The thumb looks rather natural as it goes like right there, and it has a joint at the knuckle as well. So the one thing that I'm not too happy about is the waist articulation. So it can click once that way and once that way, and I don't feel comfortable going anymore because it's flexing this piece right there, and there is no ab crunch. And if you've watched our channel, you know I love my ab crunch, so this doesn't have it, so I'm a little disappointed with that, but oh well, it's not the end of the world. And then for the legs, you have to lift this little hip skirt, and they go about that far, which I think is good enough for Cyclonus. They go back about that far, which again, probably good enough. And I already showed this, but it could go, you could do the full splits and like kick two people at once if he wants to, but it is loose.
Full Van Damme.
Full Van Damme, exactly. So for the knees, double jointed knees, again, you can't get much more than this with this design. I'm sure maybe if you move some of this kibble around, you could get it. And finally, with the feet, the ankle tilt can go like that, which isn't terribly crazy, so you're not going to be able to get any insane poses out of this guy as far as the ankles go, but it is enough for what Cyclonus would normally probably do. So all in all, articulation is really good. It's everything you would expect with not leaving too much out. Like, I'm just a little sad about that ab crunch. So Bobby, as somebody who's had this figure for years, is there anything I'm missing?
No, I think you pretty much caught everything. The hands, you know, some of the features are due to transformation, so you'll get into that once we get him transformed. But I do think one of the things that I didn't like about this figure, and again, because it's a KO, is and I don't know if it happened because you were moving the arm, but I noticed that the chest kind of unpegged a little bit.
Yes, I noticed that as well. If you look, it's unpegged, but I don't know if that's because I don't have it transformed correctly out of the box.
So that was something that I noticed with mine as well, that it didn't snap in as tight as I would like it to.
Okay. So that could also be an issue. And then one other thing are these ratchets are kind of loosey-goosey, if you can see how it's moving. And there goes his face. As always, this is going to be a faceless review because he does not like to keep his face on. But as you can see, they have a little bit of play in it. This one has a lot more play in it, which isn't the best, but, you know, on the shelf, it's going to look just fine.
Right. I think it might be time for a little bit of Kiki.
I don't know if Kiki can fix a ratchet. But so let's get into his accessories. He has some pretty cool stuff. It's everything I believe that came with the original Fanstoys, even if it's a little bit less. Is that correct, Bobby?
Correct.
Okay, so we're gonna go with his guns first. So right here we have his big rifle, and it is rather shiny plastic, which is really nice. You can kind of see it when the light hits it. So it is really cool. Let's move on to the other rifle blaster, which again, really nicely painted right here with these little bubble things. So I guess it's a bubble gun, so he's gonna go play Pokemon. And then we move into his facial sculpt. Let's see if I can get this. He's just screaming. He's gonna go scream at Shattered Glass Galvatron for how bad of a leader he is. And we've got, like I was saying, if you want an IDW version, there's the head right there, and it's a little blurry, so let's see if we can get that focus. There we go. So it looks really nice. Again, it's exactly what you get with the Fanstoys one. He also comes with a set of horns. If you want a full set of horns, not a broken horn. I don't know the story behind that, but I'm sure there's a really cool story. And lastly, we get some swords, which are really nicely painted, especially with the blue. Let me see if I could get that in focus. Well, you can see there's blue paint in the center. It seems to want to focus on him. There we go. See, you can see the blue, which is a really nice pop of color for the swords. It makes them kind of unique. And lastly, to complete the samurai look, we've got the hip skirts. And one added piece of articulation is these sword holsters do rotate. They're really tight, but they do rotate. So those are all of his accessories, except for his friend, which is awesome. This thing is so cool. I really like the Minibot, as always. I mean, again, I like ab crunches and little tiny figures. So this is really cool. If he had an ab crunch, it would be the highlight of the set, but he doesn't. So I do quite like this. I'm excited to get him transformed. But that's all of the accessories.
So the difference between this one and we'll just say, since I do have the tuned version as well as the regular Quietus, and so the tuned version comes with three separate faces, one that comes on the figure, and three separate, and then it also comes with the head, the samurai head. So that's a little bit different there. And then it also comes with an additional 2 pegs for the swords. I don't know where they peg into. I don't know if they're just extras. I kept them in the box, so I haven't looked into that part.
Okay, so that is a little bit of a shame that it doesn't come with those. But again, you still get more of accessories than any commander class from Hasbro. So this is the same price. So it's pretty cool. So why don't we get into some comparisons now, and we will be right back. All right, guys, so why don't we get into some comparisons? The first one is for your Generations collectors out there, and this is a very popular figure. Here is Tarn. So as you can see, he comes up about below the waistline of Cyclonus, so it's probably not going to work in the Generations collection unless you got some headcanon that Shattered Glass figures are ginormous. Next, we've got DX9's Terror, and I think these guys do scale really good together. And I know Ultra Magnus is supposed to be Cyclonus's nemesis, but I think this works really well together, especially since Cyclonus stole his deco. And lastly, if you guys have any Mastermind Creations figures, here is the Shattered Glass Rodimus that they did. And again, it's probably going to be too small for your collection.
All right, James, you did a good job with the bot mode. I'll go ahead and jump in here with the alt mode, and we're not going to go through the transformation since this is a Shattered Glass version and it's just basically a color wave of an old figure. There's tons of videos out there on transformation, but let's look at some of the things that make up this version from MH01C and Fanstoys. So the first thing you have the wheels, which actually do fold up in the front, but the back ones, they're really tight, and I think due to transformation, they're pressed up against the thruster, so I'm not sure you can put those up. Now, the other aspect is you have the cockpit, which does open up, and not much detail in there. It looks like could be a sticker maybe or something that could go here for a dashboard, but nothing too much there. Now, let's talk about it in comparison to some of the fans toys. And I'll actually bring in a few of them here, but some of the things that I didn't like is this piece here, this nose cone is very loose in comparison to the fans toys where it snaps in really snug. And I mean, I'm pressing this thing and it's still a little loose here. And the more you wiggle it, the looser it comes. So that actually isn't necessarily a good thing there. And then it doesn't seem to snap in, even though it is clear that everything is snapped in, it just doesn't have a snug filling. And we can see the little gap that forms here. And I'm not even really pushing, but it just kind of wiggles there. I'm going to bring in the Fanstoys Quietus for comparison here. And just like you can see, I'm moving this and it's very sturdy. The whole toy is moving before this piece moves. So that was something that I really appreciate. And cockpit is still pretty much the same here, but you can kind of tell how everything's really snug on the Fanstoys. Again, you don't hear anything wiggle. So that, oh, there we got a little wiggle, but but pretty much it, there we go. Nothing moving. So that is one thing that I noticed about the difference in the two. I think otherwise they really did a good job capturing everything from the figure. I mean, we can see the thrusters in the back look really good. The paint looks really good. The plastic does feel a little cheap in comparison though. But they did a really, really good job for half the price. And I'm actually still happy with the figure. Size-wise, and hopefully they'll stand up on the thrusters. And they're not going to, so. But size-wise, they are very much compatible. I'm also going to bring in Fanstoys toy version of Galvatron, so we can see how they look together. So we can get them both in here. And I'm using this version of Galvatron because of the alternate color. And it looks really good there. We also have X-Transbot's Eligos. And the one thing that's missing from the Quietus mode or this Shattered Glass version is the ability to plug the gun on the top in the Target Master mode. But we can see how those line up. And we can bring in Scourge from X-Transbots, the air submarine or airboat. And again, you can see how it plugs in as well for the Target Master. Looks pretty good together. And then I'm going to bring in, since James mentioned it earlier, and I'll have to do a little lifting of the camera. I have the toy version of Ultra Magnus, and we can see how the colors really do well together. It's a great paint job on this figure. see how tall he is. I didn't feel like transforming him, so you gotta bear with me on that. But it looks really good. So, again, I'll bring the camera back down. You can actually see how this nose cone is starting to bend here. So, again, something I don't really care for on this. But, James, how did you like the transformation?
I did think it was pretty cool. There were little things that annoyed me, mostly with the back thruster arms, how they had to peg it into two pieces at once. I did not like that. But the wing transformation was really unique and cool, so I really liked that. I do think the whole nose cone coming out was interesting, but I'll give Hasbro props. I think Hasbro's version of that was just more mind-blowing. Maybe it was because of the time when I picked it up. A few things I wanted to talk about with this alt mode are the canopy is another color, orange or red or whatever you want to call it, than the rest of it because it is painted. And I think you could see that on your video, kind of, because it is the see-through plastic painted the color. So I get it, but it is unfortunate. And then the other thing I wanted to talk about is how your nose cone keeps drooping. Mine does not. Mine droops at the very tip of it, but it stays up because there's no pressure on it. But as far as the part that you said was drooping, it's not doing that. So
that's good to know that yes. I have
so
problem with my figure as always.
So there might be with these figures.
Now, one other thing.
Are you trying it out now?
No. One other thing I just wanted to bring in, since you talked about how much you like the gun. Here it is transformed, or the little minifigure. So here's the Target Master transformed, and it's really, really solid. Really, really solid. I mean, it doesn't have any wiggle to it. I really, really like this. And I'll take this out of frame here so we can really get a good look at it.
I just transformed mine while I was watching you go over this, and I gotta say, that transformation is intuitive, and it's really solid. So I like it.
I like it a lot. So you finally got your minifigure. I know you were looking at a couple of them as we've been talking over the months.
I almost bought the Astro Train thing just for that minifigure.
That's exactly what I was thinking about. The Astro Train extended cab.
So I really like this, and I wish I would have got that because this thing's really cool.
Yes. It's not too late.
I think it was out of stock, but if it's not, I might have to grab it.
All right, you all. I hope you enjoyed our review of this Shattered Glass knockoff of Quietus. James, welcome to the party. You're like halfway in to the Fanstoys Club. So what did you think?
I'm dipping my toes. I liked it. I'm dipping my toes into it, and if there are interesting repaints, I'll probably pick them up. I have nothing against Fantoys. They just don't make the figures I want at the prices I'm willing to pay. But this was actually a really fun experience. The transformation was really cool, and it was an all-around a good figure. So I have no complaints, and I probably like it more than you do because I don't have the Fanstoys Quietus to compare it to.
Yes. So in comparison, I would give this, with Quietus, the Fanstoys Quietus being a 10, I would probably give this a 7.5 or 8. Again, paint's pretty good. I'm missing the weight of it, and some of the parts not feeling solid and sagging are a little bit of an issue. But otherwise, it's good for a knockoff. At half the price.
I agree. Yeah, that's a big thing. This is the same price as a Commander class for Hasbro. So I think all of the issues that we had with it are perfectly fine. It doesn't have two left hands. It isn't molded weird. It didn't miss a face. It has everything. So I would give it about the same, 7.5, 8. It's not my top favorite Transformer of all time, but it hits that nostalgic mark for me from when I got the original Shattered Glass Cyclonus. But I do have to knock it down a little bit because I want it to be red, not orange. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it definitely looks like it's coming through more orange on video than it does on photo. So, yeah, let us know what you think. Please give us any likes, shares, comments, and please subscribe as well so you can be alerted when we post next time.
Yes, and we'll see you guys very, very soon.
All right. As always, till all debates are won.